Hi everyone, and welcome to a deeper look. This is Mr. Hipchen, and he teaches theory of knowledge. How's your day today?
I'm doing well, thank you. And you?
Good.
Good.
Nothing you want to talk about in particular today?
I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Okay, great. So there's been recent news that you're retiring soon, and you've been teaching at Ogden for over 10 years. What goes into the decision of retiring?
What goes into the decision? I've been here 12 years, and I made the decision to retire at my age, probably when I was your age.
Oh.
Yeah, so I just turned 60, so I decided that I always wanted to retire at 60, and I made that plan. I went into teaching 12 years ago with the plan to retire at 60.
Wow, well, you look great.
Thanks.
So why did you choose to work at Ogden?
I chose Ogden originally because it was an international school and the programs that were offered. I had come here with the intention of hopefully being a part of a sponsor of any programs, as well hopefully teaching the Japanese language, but because I am bilingual in Japanese. And unfortunately Japanese was being phased out by CPS, but that never materialized, so I went on to sponsor the Model UN Club here for the last several years. I've also been a sponsor of trips to Mexico as well as Germany and Model UN trips throughout the United States.
Okay. I personally never had you as a teacher, but I know my friends have, and you mentioned choosing the school because it's international and you're fluent, you said, in Japanese?
Japanese, yeah.
And they told me you lived in Asia for like a few years. Can you tell me more about that and that experience?
Yes, I was when I was a junior in high school, I went to Japan as an exchange student.
Ooh.
And at the time, Japanese was as popular probably as like Chinese is to study today, so this is obviously the 80s. But that time, learning Japanese, it was heavily funded. So we went to Stanford University and studied the summer before we went to Japan. And I've always had an interest. I always wanted, interestingly enough, I wanted to go the farthest away from home. And the Philippines was the furthest, but I was encouraged to apply for the program to Japan. So I ended up having a long history in Japan, lived there for a fourth of my life, and ended up going back for university. I have a minor in Japanese and went on to work in Japan in various capacities as an interpreter as well as working for HR company. And then later I worked for a brokerage company, and then they transferred me to Chicago, so that's how I got to Chicago.
Where were you before Chicago?
I grew up in a suburb of Detroit.
Oh, okay. So you grew up in Michigan, nice. In your opinion, what's the best or like most special part about the school?
I like that there is diversity here, and people tend to be more open-minded, and it has the school is very liberal. So sometimes as a theory of knowledge teacher can be challenging because sometimes some of the students who may be more conservative may not be as vocal, and we need to hear different perspectives. So oftentimes students hear me having to play the role of a conservative to understand different perspectives on topics, because theory of knowledge is about looking at different perspectives and understanding them. But it's been fortunate to have had students from, let's say, more conservative backgrounds or coming from countries and religions that may be more conservative than what many of the students are used to. So it was often a good way to bring in their voices, their perspectives, their ideas and experiences. So because of that, it's made teaching here very interesting, as well as bringing up and let the students speak and share their voice, their experiences. So I've loved learning, and that's one of the reasons why I've stayed here.
What is the most misunderstood or misinterpreted thing about teachers in your opinion?
About teaching in general?
Or just, teachers.
That's a good question. I know when I was your age, and I'll have to admit, I didn't go into teaching because I was that nerdy kid. I went into teaching because I loved to learn. I did not have a good experience in high school. I had bad teachers. I had a bad counselor. And I won't go on the list here why, but I just felt like I wanted to go into teaching. But at the time, being a high schooler, you often don't realize how much planning goes into instruction. So I've always wanted to look at it and not get the teacher's edition or the answer booklet, but to do the assignments as a student would. So I think that's one of the things is the challenge of reaching a diverse population of learners is that challenge and all the preparation that goes on in the background.
Yeah, so just like all the work, all the preparation that
I
students.
don't say so much the work, it's just the struggle where it's not like one size fits all. Yeah.
Like different learning styles.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I love it when kids ask or say, I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
I say, I respect you more if you, voice that, and, makes it easier for all of us.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Going from quarantine and online learning to hybrid learning, were there instances of having only one student in your class? And what would you say was the most interesting takeaways about online learning?
The most interesting thing I would probably have to say was during the tumultuous period of 2020, the most interesting and satisfying, I think, was we went through this together and we weren't alone. And I think what I found is it was as much therapy for me. Mm-hmm. I think that was the eye-opening thing as it was for the students. And I think there was a lot of camaraderie built, particularly in the afternoon classes. The morning classes,
no.
Hey, it was hard.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, I wasn't in the local time zone, so it was hard to get up 15 minutes earlier and go like this to get my hair flattened and sit there and put a smile on my face and say, hey, let's talk about U.S. history. Mm-hmm. But, when the kids were engaged or conversations, that making that connection was good. But there was the challenge, and the challenge was not knowing what was going on with everybody. Mm-hmm. And I said, we're in this together. And that, I guess that was the biggest challenge and the hard thing for all of us, interestingly enough. But when you had the insurrection and that day, the day after, I think my students, I think we all bonded, and I think it helped us. I think it was as therapeutic for me as it for them.
Yeah, because we're all in isolation, and I know especially it was hard on teachers because a lot of the time you didn't really get to see your students' faces, right. So it was just kind of you and then just a bunch of random Google icons. So, yeah. We heard that you have an art form that you really enjoy and would love to get back into. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, I can thank our former art teacher, Ms. Cabral. I used to be into pottery in my previous career, and how I got transferred here. I used to translate the U.S. grain markets, and eventually became a trader on the Board of Trade. And during that time, I had a very stressful job, so I wanted something that would release my stress, so I took up pottery, so I began wheel throwing. Thanks to Ms. Cabral, she got me interested to get back into it, and I took it up at the Bridgeport Art Center last year, and during my retirement, I'm going to plan to go back to Japan and study, and also learn more how to become better at making pottery.
So when you say wheel throwing, are you talking about when in Ghost, that scene where they're doing that with... Oh, okay. No,
yeah, I'm building it up. My problem is I can only make something about this tall. I want to make bigger things, and I want to maybe sell it or do whatever. It's fun to give it away. I've given, Miss Witherspoon was interested in some things, and I said, here, have it. So I have bunches of little things.
So in Japan, are they special? I don't really know.
Oh, yeah.
Specialized in
a lot of the pottery, a famous pottery tradition started in southern Japan, came in from China and Korea. And Japan is famous for regional forms of pottery, and I'd like a little more raku, or raku as Americans say in English, is a very famous style of firing, where you take, it could be horsehair, it could be straw, and you basically put it in a garbage can, and you have a fire, and then you put the lid on it, and it creates a really cool design. So you can do all kinds of fun things, and I like the Japanese style of pottery. It's very, it's more simplified than, let's say, something you might have seen from China.
Okay. Talking about Japan, was there any, when you spent your time there, what was a cultural shock that you experienced?
For me, cultural shock was because a high school exchange student in Tokyo in a suburb, was the proximity of the houses. I mean, our house was probably about this far from next door neighbors.
Oh, so like
Yeah.
there was not a lot of privacy because it's like
No, personal space doesn't exist, and especially when you
Yeah.
have to take the train during rush hour. You could be like this with somebody, and I've actually been lifted off of my feet in a rush. Yeah.
I think I've heard of that, but despite like being so crowded, is it calm on the train? Because I heard like it's very quiet. Like if there's like loud noise, it's like rude to do that, especially like,
Yeah,
Asking
there's
about
almost
the
like a
culture.
code of conduct that
Yeah.
people don't usually talk. It is a kind of a cultural thing, and just kind of like get me through this, and it's called in that situation, it's being translated to English as being packed like sardines, susuzume.
oh.
So
What are some of the greatest moments one can experience with teaching, in your opinion?
I guess one of the nicest things is when a student is successful, or in the case when we went to Mexico and as well as Germany, is it was funny. The students often commented, "We had as much fun with you as we did on this trip," and I mean it is. I mean we get a reward, and it's refreshing to have the students have these experiences and learn a lot. And just kind of those small, I don't know, I guess revelations of having, experienced this joy and unique trip, and it is a lot of fun to go to these places. But also in the classroom is students saying things, comments here and there will come back, and I've had a student say, repeat a conversation that she had with other students about how they felt like they had a voice in my class, and to me that was a huge compliment.
With your history of traveling, do you like encourage other students to travel abroad and like?
Yes, I explained, yeah, I mean, if you can, and also, I mean, we used to have the seminar days as well as Ogden U, and I did things, how to travel abroad, and how to do it as an exchange student. First 4 or 5 years here, we had a program, it was called Cultural Kitchen at the Chicago Youth Hospital. And what we did is we would go down there and spend the night, and then the kids had to do research on a country, and then they had to present it to the guests at the hotel who were travelers from U.S. or international travelers. And it was a lot of fun for the students to do that, and then we also cooked a meal. So one year we did Morocco, one year we did Brazil, we did Greece, and I think we had another one. But it was a lot of fun, so that type of thing, it was always showing how kids to travel, and it was, a very fun time.
So that was actually our last question.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming. And yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed this episode of A Deeper Look. This was Mr. Hipchen, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.